Are you lost amidst a blizzard of digital marketing information? Are you looking for the most effective way to get in front of the pack using your own expert knowledge? Or are you striving to become an industry leader online? Come in from the cold and join us inside the Igloo today, the #1 content marketing show for peeps who like winning. Each episode of Inside the Igloo, you'll get the inside scoop on what's working and what's not in the world of content marketing from global leaders in the game. Inside the Igloo, we interview the experts who will offer strategy, advice, tips, and tricks that'll set you on a path to branded digital leadership in your field. Inside the Igloo. Stop fighting the icy winds of confusion. Step out of the storm and come in from the cold. Warm up with expert knowledge inside the Igloo, the #1 content marketing show for peeps who like winning with your host, Wes Ward. Inside the Igloo.
Welcome to Inside the Igloo, the #1 podcast show for people who like winning. I'm your host, Wes Ward, and on today's show we have Mr. Ross Bridgeford all the way from Brisbane, Australia. He is the man about everything to do with health and wellness in the alkaline diet space. He is the guru of green. He is an absolute bona fide marketplace leader in what he does, and the reason for today's episode is to really explore the benefits, the pitfalls, the ups and downs of market leadership and why it's so important in this new age we're moving along. Hello, Ross. Welcome. And what's it like to be a marketplace leader?
Hey, Wes. How you going, buddy? Great to chat with you today, mate. Market leader. That's not something people call me very often, but
that's not true. I know that's not true.
By default, it is kind of true, just simply because of the, I guess, the amount of time I've been doing this, I've been in this space, the amount of content we've created and the amount of value we've kind of given out to the market. It's kind of put us up as the leaders of this space. Absolutely.
So let's just, step back a bit and just talk a little bit about you and how you got into this space in the first place. Beforehand, you would have had a job, you would have been doing something else. Did you have an interest in the health and wellness space?
I did. Basically, it was two worlds coming together, really. My early career was working for boutique consultancies, helping new startups get their marketing plans together. And this was kind of around the early 2000s when the whole .com thing was kind of going a bit crazy. And it seemed like everyone wanted a website back then. So I kind of started consulting a little bit in that. At the same time, I went to a Tony Robbins event in London, and it really just shocked me as to how unhealthily I was living my life, and basically led me to turn everything around after that weekend. And I guess the website that I ended up creating, Energized for Life, it was the coming together of those two worlds. It was born out of a kind of a necessity to begin with, the fact that I was out there trying to implement all the suggestions he made. And all the advice we were given, and there was just nothing out there. And everything that was out there was amateurish, conflicting information. You couldn't get hold of products, you couldn't get hold of information. So between myself and my brother, we just sort of decided as a hobby, really, as a part-time thing to stick a website up and see what happened. And that was nearly 10 years ago now. So
wow. So
a long time.
And so in that time leading up to your aha moment with Tony Robbins, were you doing the consultancy on the side, or was it a full-time job, or were you working for someone else, or what did that look like?
That was a full-time job at the time. I was working for a little consultancy in Birmingham in the UK, primarily doing marketing consultancy. I didn't have any technical internet web-based skills at all at that stage. It was purely marketing advice. And I guess just as the awareness for small businesses to suddenly have a web presence developed there, every single client that was coming on board wanted something to do with the web. So I kind of had to learn very, very quickly on my feet how to do all of this kind of stuff. And it was just at the right time for me, because it was just at the time that I decided then to leave the UK for Australia and start doing Energize a bit more seriously.
All right. So you actually escaped to our sunny shores just for health reasons?
No, for girl reasons at the time, of course. That's the reason everybody moves to a new country, I think, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's always, you have to move to chase the girl. So that was what happened. And I was actually still in full-time employment for another probably 3 years after that, before my business model with Energize changed completely. And it led me to pack up my career bags and do this thing full time.
So you moved over here, you were still working in a professional capacity, and at the same time you were starting Energize for Life and starting to market it, and also parallel to that, had you already got an e-commerce store to go with it?
Yeah, well, the e-commerce store came pretty early on because I was running the business with my brother, and he's pretty good technically, so he kind of took the e-commerce side of it and ran with that, the technical element of it, getting the shopping cart and everything integrated. My passion has always been content and writing, and which then naturally developed into SEO and SEM, and then naturally developed into social media and everything else as well. So really, for the vast majority of my time when I was doing this on the side, so to speak, I was just writing content. I was writing article, building links, everything to do that's basically laid the platform for the successful blog that I've got now. And I mean, blog's kind of getting a bit of an outdated term now, obviously, but it's still what's the driving force of my entire business is WordPress as a content management platform to keep bringing in new leads, free traffic every day. And that's really what I spent, a good 2 or 3 years while I was still working, just in my spare time, writing.
Well, it's important to set up your own home base or home platform. I see many people, they, invest their time and energy in, say, a Facebook or a YouTube or a Twitter account, and then, they can just turn it off at any stage. Whereas at least if it's your own website, it's your asset, and that's clearly what you've been investing in.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, but they all strengthen each other. And I'm big on diversifying my source of income, my source of traffic. All of my new leads, I'd never, ever would want to be in a position where I'm reliant on one single thing for, more than 60% of my new leads, my traffic, basically. And, if you're reliant on third-party systems like, any of the social media platforms, or if you're reliant on just one source of traffic, whether that's organic Google traffic or AdWords traffic, at any point, you're very, very susceptible to having the rug pulled out from underneath. So definitely, having all of your content primarily on your own platform gives you so much more control.
You make a good point. A lot of people new to coming online think that just online is one medium, one vehicle, yet there's dozens of different ways to get traffic, and lining up that concept that you've got to have at least 2 or 3 to diversify. Like, the rug can be, the lights can be switched off pretty much straight away. Has that ever happened to you?
It's happened. I've been given warnings. And I think I'm very, very fortunate to have been given warnings rather than true lessons. I've had periods where, for instance, I'll give you an example with pay-per-click. Google had determined that one of the amino acids that we were selling was actually an anabolic steroid, which was quite ludicrous, and closed our entire AdWords account overnight without warning or without any kind of explanation. And even at this stage, we were using a agency in the US that actually had really good account rep within Google. It still took us 2 weeks to get that back on. And at that stage, that was our primary source of actual revenue traffic, like, money-making traffic on a day-to-day basis. So that was kind of taught us a lesson. On the organic side, I've definitely, same as everyone, had ups and downs with each Google update. Sometimes you don't, sometimes you do. But there's been a couple of years ago that, you just find yourself disappeared for a week.
And it makes
and
a big
you kind of
doesn't it?
Scramble around wondering what the hell has gone on. And then you realize that doing nothing is the best thing. And in a week it's popped back up again. But, when you can see in your opt-ins, because for me, opt-ins are my main source of revenue. It's more of a long-term strategy that I pursue. I know how much money each opt-in is worth to me over a year period.
So just for the benefit of the audience, when you say opt-in, you're talking about someone who arrives at your website and subscribes to one of your products or email list?
Yep, that's absolutely it. So they come onto my website to various different places, and depending on where they land, like if they land in an area about detox, I offer them, a free guide or a free report or a video series or something good for free that's related to where they've come into the website in exchange for their email address. And then they go onto a email list and then get more free content over and over and over until I am ready to pitch something to them, basically.
Now, just on that, some people who are sort of new to this form of marketing would think, hang on, you're giving away all your secrets or your IP, that sort of stuff. In your experience, what have you found by giving as opposed to selling or requesting something straight away?
Well, it's all about relationships, isn't it? It's all about building a conversation and a relationship with your prospects to make them truly believe that everything you do is in their best interest rather than in your bank balance's best interest. You know, the more trust, if for anyone who wants to learn more, in my mind, about online marketing, reading the book Influence is probably the best $20 you'll ever spend.
Yeah.
And I know that you've read it several times.
Absolutely. I think it's just a gospel work.
The triggers that they talk about in that book, the likability and the reciprocity, all of these things, you want to position yourself in your audience's mind as someone who's likable, as someone who gives. And it's all about setting yourself up in your prospect's mind. So when you do have an offer, they feel that you're presenting that offer to them in a way that it's for their benefit. It's in their best interest, just to make a fast buck, basically.
Yeah. Is there a point? Is there a sweet spot where you feel that you're getting into that threshold with a group or an audience where you can feel that your emotional bank balance is so high in credit that no matter what you do, they're just responding, they're sharing, they're doing, they're exhibiting certain behaviours that make you think, hang on, I'm in the zone here, and they really, really trust me?
I think so. I think you always want to be in the zone. You can tell if you're in the zone or not by your continued open rates of your emails, the click-through rates of the links you put in your emails, the number of comments you get after your blog posts or articles or videos, the reach you get on Facebook. All of these things, I could be better at being more quantitative with my analysis of my website, but you definitely get a feel for when you're on versus when you're off. I've been building an email list for a long time through my site, and I can tell when I'm starting to come out of that zone. The biggest marker for me that I can tell is if I send out an email, just some content, maybe I've written a new recipe or done a new video or something, just keeping my list up to date with what I'm doing, giving them a nice article or a nice guide or something. I can tell that if I'm in the zone, the email contacts that I gained over a year ago are just as responsive as the ones I gained within the last couple of weeks.
And you can tell that?
Yeah, you can tell that. If it depends on how you set up your lists in your email provider, whether it's Aweber or iContact or whichever one you choose. I segment my lists down by age, by date, pretty much. It's just
so that would be date when they subscribed or opted in.
Yeah, it's more that's more a workaround for some of Aweber's weaknesses than a specific plan that I have. But it's a way I run continual promotions to my list in Aweber. You can't do it particularly easy with their functionality, but it's a way for me to be able to tell, like, look, because normally for most people, if you sent out an email newsletter to your whole database, the older the list, the older the leads, the least responsive they'll be in a big, big way. The recency of when someone's just signed up to your list would normally make a huge impact on whether they open your email, click through to your article, and then contribute. But if you're in that sweet spot, if you've got your list warmed up and they're feeling like the reciprocity is there, and that you're giving and you're treating your list with respect and treating them well, your engagement will be just as high with the older people on your list as it is with the newer people on your list.
Could you say that relevance is probably a higher priority than recency?
Yes and no, but I don't think you can. If you haven't got the recency in terms of, it depends how you're defining recency. But if you define recency by the time that has elapsed between you last engaging with your audience versus the time from the day they signed up to the list, if you're talking recency in terms of keeping the list warm and keeping them engaged, I would think that that's actually more important in a way, because you can send the most awesome content to a cold list and it won't get opened. It won't get looked at.
But that comes down to that warmth and whether they're still feeling the love or not.
To me, as someone whose marketing strategy is largely based around creating content and the whole SEO thing is kind of a related but different topic that we can talk about for forever and a day, because I know that we have before. But if you're talking creating content as being your SEO strategy and being your business strategy, it's kind of in a way the most important thing is the most profitable thing you can do is to firstly build a list, capture the leads that come to your website, and split test and try different things and try new approaches, different things to give away, different headlines, different colors, even different fonts to maximize the number of people who visit your site, maximize the number of people who opted in. But then the second most profitable thing, the thing you should spend most of your time on, is keeping that list warm, keeping the people on that list engaged and loving you and feeling like you're someone that's there for them.
This is a really core distinction, because, there's a lot of gurus out there, a lot of service providers we speak to, and they talk about all these different strategies, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, offline press releases, etc., etc. But what's really coming up here today is that your primary channel, you've got all these other channels, but what's coming up for me today right now is that the number one channel or place where you put the most attention because it's most profitable is still boring old email.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And all the other things play a part in that. Social media and everything else plays a part in that relationship, because it's all part of me positioning myself as someone who's knowledgeable and who's someone who is ethical and someone that believes in good karma, basically, in essence. I'm giving without any expectation of receiving. And all of those things play a massive role in that. But ultimately, what drives my business, what puts money in my bank account is the email list, is emailing people, good old fashioned email. It's the vehicle to get people to my content. Yeah. Without the technological advancements of having video, of having social media, of having all these things, there is no better way for me to drive relevant, highly targeted, highly warm traffic to those pieces of content that may be just delivering a lesson, or maybe giving something away for free, or maybe selling. There's no better way of doing that than to build an email list, keep that email list warm and happy, and then send them to the content when I want them to see that content.
And this is a really, really important lesson, because a little while ago I was speaking with Joe Pulizzi at Content Marketing Institute, and he said that's the marketing in content marketing. There's no point creating all this content if you're then going to do nothing about it. And what's becoming really, really obvious right now is that email is very, very effective still, and it works really, really well in your business, and you're a proven bona fide market leader. So for all our audience out there, they should be scribbling notes like crazy right now that, yes, there are a lot of tactics and strategies, but, to the average Joe out there, they understand email. They don't necessarily understand Twitter or use it, but one thing digital, it's email. You're hitting all the buttons pretty much by sending out an email, don't you think?
Absolutely. And there's definitely nuances. Like, it's not necessarily like an email, like a newsletter or an e-zine type, graphically kind of created picture-filled content thing. It's an email as if you were writing one-to-one.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're talking about, like not business person to consumer, it's friend to friend. That's how you're writing the email. So, I'm sure there's still loads of businesses out there that are making great profits from doing a newsletter that's got product offers in it and everything else. But that's kind of a different approach.
But I also
it's what we're talking about.
I also think that can be a real barrier to people getting started, is that, if they've got to start doing graphics, etc., for their email send-outs. Are you using plain text and links?
Yeah, absolutely. You want it to look as much like you're just writing to your friend as possible.
Right.
I have started testing. In fact, I've got 2 product launches running concurrently at the moment. And product launches is something we'd probably do a whole other podcast on.
Absolutely.
But I am actually split testing at the moment, having an image of a thumbnail of a video in there for people to click on versus not having that, to see if it affects click-through rates, but that's also getting into split testing, which is a whole other podcast as well.
And how is that going? Because I've just started on that and I'm really loving putting a thumbnail of a video in there. But
it's interesting. It's interesting. I'm testing it rigorously for the first time tonight. It will go out at about 8 o'clock Australian time. So I will maybe post a comment on the page where this podcast ends up to
Absolutely.
update.
We'll create a footnote on the blog post.
But, and I'm doing it because I'm in a mastermind group that does a lot of this stuff, and a lot of people are saying it's working really well for them. But it's also a lesson in that what works for some people might not work for other people, because I did try this on a previous product launch I did a while ago, and I actually found that people were intimidated by the concept of it being a video tutorial in this instance, because they felt that they couldn't watch it at work, and clicking on that link was going to be a half an hour investment in their time to watch the whole video. And I was finding that a lot of people, I was using the Vimeo for this to test this specifically, I was finding that a lot of people were clicking through to the video, but then just pausing it and not going any further with it. So when I split tested that against just calling it a tutorial or a guide or an article, the click-through rate went up. So it just, I
think there'd be a lot to do with setting expectations, wouldn't it? If you know that it's going to be a tutorial, like you got to invest a bit.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of, it's just, I guess, a mini lesson to what works for some people doesn't work for others, because and especially because I know a lot of people, I guess in this industry of online marketing and publishing and stuff, learn from people who make money by selling tutorials on how to sell online marketing and publishing stuff. So, the tendency is to copy and use the content that those types of gurus create and expect that to work in the health market or to work in the, the dog training market or the whatever kind of market. And it's just, I guess, what works in one market don't always work in another one. I guess it's the lesson learned.
Yeah, that's a really important lesson, because, there'll be people out there that are just starting out and, they know their subject, they know their topic, and they're quite enthusiastic and they're building content, and they're going to get piles and piles and piles of advice. We both have been there.
Yeah.
And, my counsel is to say, just stick to what you know and do what your gut is. Get advice on a few nuances, but do it and learn rather than just keep trying to read and watch videos and all that. Because I think your market best. You could be an engineer in a certain region of Australia or England or wherever, or you could be a health and beauty spa. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
you're going to know your target audience best.
Yeah. And totally.
You got to reflect that, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And I think the danger can come across that your voice changes as well. If you kind of follow too many kind of guru approaches, and I hate to use that expression because it tars all of the people that have made a success of themselves in that industry as with the same brush as these gurus, because that's not the reality. There's some great teachers out there, but you can find yourself, if you get too entrenched in that world, your voice changes, the way you write, and especially the way you write your emails. And when you switch from writing just, normal content emails, hey, I've got, just written this new cheat sheet for you, a new guide or a new recipe or whatever. When you then switch to your sales pitch emails, your voice just completely changes. And people, whether it's conscious or subconscious, people can tell. And it's another lesson that I learned a few months ago. Because it was going to be a big promotion for me, and there was a lot of pressure, and I was just killing myself writing the email copy to send people to my videos and to my sales page. And in the end, I ran a few split tests, and I was just finding, why am I not getting the open rates or the click-through rates that I normally get? I look through my Aweber stats, and it's like, I can see all of my emails get roughly this much open rate and this much click-through rate. And all of a sudden, it's like nowhere near that amount. And it was simply because I was suddenly writing like an internet marketer rather than writing like myself. I'd fallen into that trap. And as soon as I just kind of...
Yeah, that's really, really interesting, because, you're one of the few people that are... We're talking really highly advanced stuff here right now. And you can tell that switching from your authentic voice, being you, true to what, has made you a leader in your field, into sort of sales speak, which is not you, You've actually got the empirical evidence to prove that, getting off your authentic self wasn't working out as a business, as your return on investment.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It wasn't at all. And as tempting as it is to drive for that sale, especially when you've invested so much into creating a product, and every internet marketer's fear is putting their sales page up after all of that investment of themselves and their lives and their time and everything else in, and then kind of looking at your sales stats and just seeing like 1 or 2 orders dribble in. That's everyone's fear, and I think it can play with your mind, and it can change the way you write copy, and it can change the way you do things, because for me, it's all I did. I was floundering, and I just simply thought, you know what, I'm just going to write this as if it were any other piece of content. Yeah. And I just sat there and just cracked out the email. Just took me less than 15 minutes to write an email that I'd spent, no joke, days trying to write. And within 15 minutes, I'd written an email, and bang, the open rates and click-through rates were back to normal again.
I think what's really important here too is that the business models that were supporting the content creation. If you look at a regular business who's already out selling widgets and doing whatever, they're probably not under that sort of pressure to make the sale relevant to their content in terms of an information product. If you're out there selling widgets, you've probably got other marketing channels as well that are offline. You've got sales teams. You may have ad budget. People walking around. You may have distributors selling on your behalf. Got all these channels, so all of a sudden the content can be more educational and just brand building rather than just hardcore direct sales.
Absolutely. And I think for a lot of businesses like the ones you just described, they would think of email marketing as that traditional weekly easy newsletter that goes out that's got a special offer on something or a new product's come out, or it's all product driven. Whereas in reality, making it the anti-newsletter is probably the best thing that a lot of businesses could do. And maybe you do both. Maybe you could have both, and maybe that could work really well for you. And again, with everything, you just have to test it.
Absolutely.
But for us, when we switched from going, our weekly newsletter is all about promoting a new product, to our weekly newsletter is just about being really nice and educating people and taking stuff that everyone else was charging money for and making it free, all of a sudden, the amount of repeat visitors we were getting, the amount of old customers from our database, and this should be exciting to any company out there, like an e-commerce company that's got a database of really old customers as well. When we switched to this type of marketing, really loosely worded marketing, old customers just came out from nowhere, out of the woodwork, and started buying again.
Well,
at that stage, it was truly just a supplement, $50, $30 supplement type of business. It wasn't an information business at all.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's just the give, which is that freemium model, which is what content marketing is about. If you let go of the idea that, my ideas are intellectual property that should be protected in stone and people must pay for it. Yeah. There is a leap of faith in that, in terms of giving it away just to see what comes back.
Yeah. But oh my God, it becomes obvious very quickly that it's the right thing to do.
Really? Well, and this is the reason why we got you on the show, Ross, is because, you're in the field, you're in the trenches, you are what I'd call an end user. You've got your own business model. It has evolved that is supported by your content marketing efforts. You're a prodigious content creator. And, originally you had an e-commerce store. Now you're selling information products. But this approach of give, and using the boring channel, it's not sexy, but email, supplemented by social media, not sort of dictated to or driven by, getting people back to your home base, being your website. And I still think blogs is the most powerful channel and should be the starting point of any business. You've got to own your own platform.
Absolutely. It's like if you can imagine like a circular diagram with everything feeding into each other, because obviously you're creating masses of unique, really useful, really relevant, really on topic content on your blog and your website. That is getting you free traffic from Google. It's building you links naturally, which is getting you more free traffic from Google, and then that's feeding people into your email list. The social media element of it is building your positioning and your brand. And it's providing traffic as well. It's another source of traffic, which is fantastic. But it's also building your brand, building your persona, getting you engaging one-on-one with customers, making customers feel special. And then all of this is feeding back into traffic, back into your email database, and then you're using email as your communication medium to specifically feed people more new content. So when it just all snowballs. But the beauty with using email and building an email database, I mean, it's literally, it transformed my business overnight. The realization of the most important transaction on my website is exchanging some great free content for an email address. That just changed my entire business overnight. It truly did, because it allows you to release content and direct people specifically to the content that you want to direct them to at a very specific time, rather than creating great content and just having it sat there waiting for people to come to it.
You've made an incredibly good point here, and I'm just going to call you back on it, is that the most important transaction to happen in your entire business is whether someone trusts you enough to give you their email address.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And I think that's a huge lesson, because essentially that's the top of your funnel, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And the more people that become a part of your world, really, because now, you can give them more stuff and you can create more content for them, and you can build even more of a relationship with them than when they were just a visitor that would come to your website ad hoc, read an article and disappear again. It gives you that database of people to, when you have got something to sell, when you have got something to promote to them, it gives you a massive, I guess, big force of energy all going into one directed place. I'm now in a position where if, for instance, on the supplement business, let's keep it tied to e-commerce rather than information. Let's say, for instance, one of my big suppliers comes to me and they're like, oh my God, we've got this amazing new product, this new supplement that we'd like you to promote for us. Historically, what I would have done is gone, great, I'll write a blog post about it and I'll put it on the website. And that kind of would have been the end of it. Maybe set up a pay-per-click campaign for it, but that kind of would have been the end of it. Whereas now I've got my entire database that will be happy to hear about this new product because it's relevant to them. It's, they've signed up to receive information about this niche in the health industry. They will enjoy getting this new content, and I can immediately put this product in front of, 1 to 200,000 people overnight.
Wow.
So to an e-commerce store, that's just incredibly powerful marketing that then will have the ripple effect of course, people then may repeat buy it. When you've got that critical mass of people, they will share it with people. It's a completely different world to where I was, say, 5 years ago, where my launch of a product would have simply been a blog post and a pay-per-click campaign that would have just been, maybe it would have put 200 people on that page in 24 hours rather than tens of thousands.
Well, you've just said another nugget of gold in there. You wouldn't be aware of my white paper about the new audience owner. This is a classic example of Ross being a new audience owner, because I heard you quote that you've got a list of around about 200,000 people.
Yeah.
That's bigger than most businesses today, and yet, most businesses still have to rent access to other people's audiences, like via advertising.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the papers, TV, radio, or even in the example you just provided, which was, say, an e-commerce, supplements provider comes to you and he's basically either got to beg, borrow, or steal somehow to get access to that audience. You are now the audience owner, and now you're in control of your destiny. That's powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it becomes even more powerful if you are the owner of the product as well. But, that's another conversation. But look, building a list, there's nothing hard about it. It's not, rocket science. And I wouldn't want anyone to sort of go, oh my God, you've got a massive list, therefore, it's not worth me trying, or not worth me thinking about it, or that's
impossible.
Because it isn't, all it was, I had been running Energize, building content, giving value for all this time on my blog, but I'd never even thought to build a list. I'd always seen it as a way to, in the end, if people like me, they'll come and they'll buy products, and that's great, But all I did was I basically went through my analytics, my Google Analytics, and went, right, where's all the traffic on my site, And I'm a big believer in the 80-20 rule, because it's always true, and it was true in this instance. that, 20% of my pages, or probably less, was responsible for 80% of all of my traffic. And I would imagine it's the same for most sites. And it was simply then a case of, on those pages, redesigning those pages, or encouraging people on those pages to opt in for more information. Some way or another, I always think it's good to give them as big a possible reason to sign up. Right. I've done 5-part video courses as reasons people sign up. PDF guides, like 30-page reports, or mini little recipe books, or live Q&A sessions, or webinars, or anything, whatever you've got that's worth something to someone, and most people that own a website and that are content creators are more of an expert than they give themselves credit for. So even if you think it's super basic information, just turn it into a PDF or a white paper, like you mentioned earlier, or an audio or a video or something, and give that away for free in return for the email address. And if you do that on your 5 most trafficked pages, all of a sudden you're building a list from nowhere, and then it's just down to trying different things, like I said right at the beginning of this podcast, trying a different giveaway, or trying a different headline, or trying a different anything to try and get the conversion rate of visitors to opt-ins as high as possible.
And you made a really, really important point, is that just to frame it for people out there, is that you could create a 5-video series in terms of, sign up now. We will, drip feed via the email autoresponder, the one you're using is Aweber. There's others that, I think MailChimp is free for a certain level. But what you're saying is produce the 5 videos or the 5 PDFs or whatever they are, and then they get delivered once they sign up in whatever fashion you want, the whole lot right now, or one a day for 5 days. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, or even if the thought of an autoresponder sounds too technologically advanced, just write a PDF, or just record one video with just an iPhone as your video camera.
Yes, just
you talking about your topic. I think the best thing to do is probably brainstorm the top 5 problems that your audience has. The top 5 things that prevents them from getting the result that your business gives them.
They'll be the same questions they get every day of the week, and all that they'd have to do is just go and speak to their sales team. What questions do you get day in, day out, 80% of the time? Yep.
And just simply have an opt-in form on the site somewhere highly visible that just says, basically, sign up now and get this free thing.
Yeah.
P.S. We won't spam you. Basically, that's as much as that is as simple as it needs to be. And that will start building a list for you. And then once you've got the list, just keep giving them great content, even if it's just blog posts, even if you're just sending them to a blog post, It doesn't have to be advanced stuff. It's the content that people care about, not how it's delivered to them.
Interesting.
So even if you're just writing a blog post on WordPress, it's as simple as that. And send them once a week, once every 10 days, or twice a week, however it is, but be consistent with your timings of when you send them stuff. And just keep in touch with them. Answer people's emails, answer the comments on the blog post. Be available. Access to when you are a content publisher, you are a guru, whether you like it or not. And access to you, or even perceived access to you, is what makes people truly engage with you as a brand.
That's very powerful. And you're using that at the moment. You've moved from e-commerce store marketer to having your own private groups, that access, paying, that hierarchies of access, I think is a really, really important topic. I think we won't cover it today because we could just go on for days on this and may save it for another one. But it's just a really, really powerful concept, this of keeping it simple. And, if you're just going to blog and not do anything else, blog and then grab the link and email it to however small your list is, your customer list, your database, your friends. You've got to start somewhere. When you started out, you wouldn't have had a list at all, to really get going.
No.
If you had we're speculating a bit, if you had implemented this strategy from the start, what sort of time frame do you think you could have shortened it to where you are today? Instead of how many years, it's 6 years or 7 years, you've got a list of 200,000 people. If you were doing this, putting all your effort into getting people to sign up and doing what it takes to make that happen, what sort of time frame do you think?
It would have been a long time ago. Well, to give it context, I probably started trying to actively build a list I'm just trying to think now, it would be about August, September 2010.
Wow. Seems
So
like
if
the
I'd have
other
been
day.
doing that since 2003, which is when we started the website, or 2003, we'd have, obviously we didn't have the same level of traffic then, but the level of traffic we've got now, we've had for a long, long time. So the list that we have got now would probably be way more than double, probably 3 times at least, if we'd have been doing this from the start, at least.
But it's that whole snowball effect that you spoke about earlier, though. If you put out some good content in a blog post and then supplement by some sort of amazing free information that all they got to do is sign up, and then maybe put an element of shareability in it. So just imagine that every person who subscribed shared it to 2 other people. Then all of a sudden you've got true leverage. You've got a sort of amplification effect.
Absolutely.
And that's really, really the goal, is that to get people in to love your content enough that they want to share it. That's sort of, a form of evangelism that, you can't buy that. That comes down to that authentic voice and the engaging manner in which you add value and create relevance in the content you're doing. And I think you've raised a really, really important point today, is that, you know your market better than anyone as, a business owner. As you or someone out there who's listening to this podcast, you know it. And whether you believe it or not, you're already an authority in your marketplace because people are spending money with your business already. The fact that they're spending money buying services, whether it's, plumbing services, roofing, or, book publishing, or whatever the business is, you're already an authority because people are paying you money for it. So here's a fantastic example of building content to basically attract a new audience, but also then retain them and then hopefully turn them into evangelists that'll go spreading your word. And I've just, I look at your Facebook page and I know that you've got a lot of evangelists within your audience right now that spread the word.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something I could be doing more of. There's so many different ways that you can do this sort of thing, but you, specifically you, Wes, are really, really strong at leveraging, if you create content, making sure it's shared, making sure the share is shared, making sure that it's visible in different places. And that's something that I know that I could get a lot stronger at, but I know damn sure that it's high on my priority list for next year. Absolutely. It's you want to give your brand evangelists every possible tool they need to make spreading the word as easy as possible.
And that's the beauty of the social media tools out there. Like I look at, this particular interview will be turned into a transcript. It will be turned into articles. It will be turned into a video. And that's just the starting point. And before we look at anything else, I get so much inspiration out of these because it just opens up a whole new conversation. And I'll take a bunch of notes after this and then look at other interview ideas. So there's a real leverage of time. And you sort of touched on it earlier, the 80-20 rule. Like there are a million things to think of, but to the busy CEO or the marketing CMO, and you're trying to work out what to do. Well, here's, we've heard it from someone who's built a list of 200,000 people, who religiously looks at his analytics, doesn't go over the top with social media, and just does boring email off a WordPress blog.
I hope you're referring to the concept of emails being boring, not my emails.
No, I'm not talking about the content being boring. I'm talking about the unsexiness of the technology. Because, everyone's like, the Twitter strategy or the YouTube hack or the Facebook blah or whatever the next phase is. And to, the people, the genuine business owners out there that are going, where do we start? We've got all these people, yap, always in our ears, don't know who to believe, don't know who to trust. Here it is right now. Build a WordPress-based site, get someone who's really good at it, it's free, start building a list. The most important metric outside of getting traffic to your site is people subscribing to whatever you're giving for free on the email list. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. It's as simple as that. It's traffic, content, both kind of being combined because you're building the content to get the traffic in a way. Yeah. But it's kind of get traffic in, get them onto a list, treat that list with all the love in the world. And from there, everything just becomes so much easier. And that's a business model that's incredibly simple.
Wow. And it's sort of give to it hurts.
Yeah, basically. I mean, there's the thing is, people do get hung up on what would I write, what do I say, but just if you start with the top 10 questions that your audience has, the top 10 pains in their life that have brought them to your company in the first place. If you created a short video or even just a blog post about each of those and drip fed them out over 10 weeks, one a week for 10 weeks, by the end of that 10 weeks, you would know what you're doing. You would have a feel for your list. You'd have a feel for your audience, and it would be so easy from there. You wouldn't even be able to write a list long enough of the amount of different things that you could write about. It's all about getting started. It's all about getting some skin in the game and just making that first step to doing this, and what easier way to do it than to just write about what you know.
We'll wrap on that final point, and I think it's that real concept that you are a publisher. And I got a healthy kick in the pants by a viewer out there who I was a bit slow getting my magazine, the second edition, out because I was so busy getting all these other things organised that they said, "Where is it?" And it was the best kick in the pants I've ever had because it validated that I was a publisher and that there was an audience of one person sitting there expecting it.
Yep. Oh, totally.
That was enough to completely shift. Hang on, this is now a business. This has got to be treated with the respect it deserves. We have to publish on time and on schedule, and we have to lead like we mean it. And,
absolutely.
And that's it. And, I've got a million questions here, but one of them that came up for me about market leadership is, do you feel a responsibility to your audience once you've got them in? I'm sure you do. That's
absolutely. I was just going to say, when you were saying you had that person kick you in the balls, I was going to say that's because you are now responsible.
Yeah.
You are now responsible for being a publisher and giving those people the best you can possibly give them. That's what they deserve, and that's what you are now responsible for delivering. And, I think that's a great thing, a great positive stress to have, is to know that there's an audience out there, that what you're doing makes a difference for these people.
Yeah,
it truly makes a difference, and people should never underestimate the difference that they're making in a lot of people's lives, and the potential they have to make a difference in people's lives as well. So you are responsible, absolutely.
Yeah, and it also comes down to the fact that it gives you that adrenaline hit that you've got a deadline to make. It makes it real.
Yeah.
But also know that it's probably not a good idea if you're not going to finish this off, or, if you're just going to let a blog die, which 95% of blogs only go for about 5 weeks before they die. So that was the opportunity that all of a sudden people aren't going to be consistent. And, a lot of people talk about, content is king. I debate that and say consistency is, but we'll call it consistency is queen.
Yeah.
But, if you're not reliable enough, people are going to stop showing up.
Yeah, totally. And I touched on it earlier, but the consistency is absolutely critical. If you decide from day one you're going to write one thing a month and that's all you're going to do, and you stick to that, that's so much better than writing 10 things a week for 2 weeks and then nothing for 3 months.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
And then something else for 2 weeks and then something else for 4 months after.
And I think it's about setting the bar really low to start with, just to get that winning habit.
Yeah, totally. And people think they don't have time to do this, but people waste a lot of time.
Yeah.
You do what you see is important, and if you place enough importance on content creation, you will realize that it takes hardly any time at all. And the more you do it, the quicker and easier it gets. I'm at the point now where, for webinars, for instance, for one of the courses that I'm running, I'm delivering a webinar every week. And I can literally wake up in the morning, because it's on at 5 a.m. Australia time to suit the American and UK audiences, which is lovely. Brainstorm a list of 5 things to talk about and then just talk about them for 2 hours. Because I've been writing content for 7 or 8 years. And that's the thing. For me, when I was first starting, to deliver a 2-hour webinar, I'd have been shaking in my boots not knowing what to talk about. But the more you do it, the more you get into it and the easier it gets. And the more I think you just absorb into your subconscious the collective needs and fears and goals and stuff of your audience. You embody what your audience en masse is, their collective kind of wants and needs and desires. And so when you're writing, you're just writing and it's coming out, it's coming across, and you're writing in a highly targeted way. So from an SEO perspective, from a list building perspective, and from a list love perspective, or I should say content or audience love rather than just list, because not everyone's building a list. But from all those perspectives, the more content you create, the better you're going to be. And even if you only drip feed it out once a week, just the best thing you can do is just start creating content.
Well, what an amazing way to finish up. Ross, look, we've just on the hour, and it could have gone for another 2 because I feel like we've only just scratched the surface. Maybe we'll look at it for another time. But thank you again for your insight. Basically, the key line messages here, we're talking with someone who's actually doing it, has done it, knows the benefits of giving first and not taking, not selling, putting out quality content and give, and it's paying for us. It's paying for Ross's lifestyle. He has an audience of 200,000 people on his email list. Go to his Facebook page. There's Energize for Life. I think there's well over 10,000 likes. Is that right, Ross?
I think so. Or maybe 15, but there should be more. That's one of the things that you need to teach me more about.
Right. Well, it's just interesting that, here's a guy who just put his back into it seriously only 2 years ago and is getting profound results. He is a genuine new audience owner. He doesn't have to go to traditional media owners or publishers to reach more. He's got his own vehicle. He's created it, but really taking a simple approach. A WordPress blog, a list building or email list building system, they're his highest priorities. Give, add value, and he's doing it in a very authentic, relevant, engaging manner that's really resonating with his audience, and above all, everyone is an expert. It's just who publishes that expert knowledge that's going to be the leaders in the field. I think this has just been an amazing interview. I really appreciate your time, Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Wes.
Absolutely. We'll do this again sometime.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap this up. Now, for everyone who isn't aware, Ross can be found at energizeforlife.com. It's all over the internet, but get over there, get on his list, learn about healthy living, alkalizing your body and feeling great, and you'll learn a lot about that, inspired by Ross. So that's the end of today's podcast. If you like what you hear, put comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. Anything, further questions you've got, I'll be answering them. And I'm sure if there's anything specific you want to know about Ross, I can ask him and we'll get some of those answers down there. There is a transcript to this. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon wherever you are in the world. My name is Wes Ward. You've been Inside the Igloo, the #1 podcast show for people who like winning.
You've just been Inside the Igloo, the #1 content marketing show for peeps that like winning, with your host, Wes Ward. For more information about leading your market online, visit Content Igloo at www.contentigloo.com.